Hi there, Philip here, and welcome in Untitled Lecture. In this one we'll be working on a practical application, and while we'll be coding, I will be explaining you basic concepts of React. So without any further waiting, let's start. Open your browsers, let's open your coding editors, and first thing you need to initialize your starting project. You can find the link to this project in the description of this video, and there is also a link to the video that will help you to initialize this project. Okay, so whenever you are ready and your projects are prepared, you will go just to terminal and you will start up your development server. So npm run dev. If you are initializing this project from my GitHub repository, don't forget to run the first command npm install, and when everything is installed, then npm start, and this will run your project on localhost 3000. Alright, so in previous lectures, I have been explaining you some of the core of concepts of React. In this lecture, I'll take a look on the main concepts such as components, props, lifecycle functions, state, handling events, and all of this stuff you can find in the main concept section at the React website. Okay, so let's start. We can actually close this. We don't need to have it open. We'll be working on our application. So let's go to our coding editors. And where we left at in the last lecture, so we have created app component. Okay, so that's quite good, but we can continue with. We can remove these comments, we don't need them. And we'll take a look also on our index.js. In our index.js we are providing app. This app is getting rendered in our browsers. That's so far so good. Okay, so that's what we are seeing here. Okay, we'll do it a little bit of reformatting. So I will just copy it. I will wrap it in the curly brackets, and I will write here explicitly return, okay, because we'll write here multiple lines of code later. So let's keep it as this, my custom component. And actually we don't need to display here my custom component. Let's say here for now my, let's say, book notes app. Okay, and you will save this. Of course, you should see these results here. Okay, so what we want to actually achieve in our application, so I will mark it here. So let me find my tool for drawing on the screen. All right, here it is. And so, okay, so here will be our application. So here we will be having some cards here. Okay, so it will be one card, second card, third card, let's say 3 cards per one row. It'll be displaying here the title of the book. So let's say it can be any title. So this will be title here, title of the book, let's say on the page where we left off. Okay, so let's say page will be, it can be some number of the page where we stopped reading, and also to remind us what we have read the last time. So it will be a recap. Okay, so we'll have some recap. So this will be just the last point we left off in our book. So we'll have just a few cards, we'll be displaying on our page, and also later we'll create here form up here. There will be form. Okay, and this form we will create, actually remove it. In this form we will create, there will be some inputs, and we'll be creating these new books when we'll start reading some new book. Okay, so we know what to do. We need to display here cards. Okay, so I'll remove it. I'll close this, okay? And first of all, just to help us with the stylings, I will initialize your Bootstrap CSS framework. So we can go here and we can search here for a Bootstrap. We are looking for a version 4, okay, so, okay, Bootstrap here. Make sure you have version 4.5 here, and just scroll down here to npm install, copy this command, let's go to your terminal. All right, and we'll just write here in your folder where is your project, npm install. Actually, just paste the command here, and this will install the Bootstrap for you. Or actually, wait a second. All right, let's paste it here and write here -- save. So this will be added into your package.json file. Okay, after that, we should have a Bootstrap. We'll import this CSS into our code, and we'll be creating new components. Let's clear it out. npm start, and let's continue. Alright, so in our coding editors, we need to import Bootstrap. Usually you will import CSS into your root folder, in your root file, okay, where you are providing your app into the render function. So down here, let's write here import. We are importing now from a node module, so whenever you are importing from node modules, you don't need to actually include here // and write here explicitly node modules. You just need to write here name of the package, which is bootstrap /dist/css and /bootstrap.min.css. It's the name of the file. Okay, and you can actually, you can find this file in the node modules. When you will go here, you can go to bootstrap folder. So let's find it here. Let's go down here to a bootstrap. Okay, here is a bootstrap dist CSS, and we are importing here this bootstrap. Bootstrap means CSS, so here it is. Okay, so our CSS should be provided to our application. So when I will go to your browser, as you should see here, that when you will refresh, you should see here that a little bit change in the styles, in the fonts. Perfect. Okay, of course, this lecture is not about the Bootstrap, but about React. So let's create here some components. First, we need to create some data, actually. Let's go back. And I will create here some placeholder data we can use in our application. We will do it in our app.js. I will create here some data, okay? So I'll create here const, let's call it books, uppercase, it will be array of the books. Okay, so array, square brackets, curly brackets from for object. And our book will have a title. Title, let's start, let's say Lord of the Rings. All right, title, then the recap where we left off. So let's say Frodo leaves Shire, all right, and the last page. So last page, let's say we left off on the page 87. Okay, and also just for convenience, let's add here date when we have added this entry. So date, all right, and that will be, you can just simply use the function new date. You will create a new instance of a date. Okay, date is available globally in the JavaScript in the browser, so you can use a date here. Okay, this will be first book, perfect. We can write here comma, and we can add here a second book. So I will copy it, paste it here. We'll add a second book. So this can be some of your books you know you have read, or maybe some other stuff you would like to. You don't need to work here strictly with the books. You can provide here any data you want. It depends on your application. So let's say feature. You'll write recap. Okay, so let's say Geralt fights some monster. All right. Okay, and the last page, let's say 55. Okay, and the dates can stay the same. Okay, perfect. So we have our books we can use in our application, and we can display them on the screen. Okay, so first thing we need to provide here some styling or need to provide here some HTML structure. We would like to display this data, so it will appear that they are in the card. Actually, I don't want to create this from the scratch, so I will go to a Bootstrap, and you can find here for documentation and components down here, and we'll look up here for a card, and we'll find here the vault template, how we can initialize this card. Okay, so let's go down here. I don't want to actually include here image, so I will look for some card without the image. Let's go down here, and let's say this one is just great here. This featured, or maybe something with the footer as well. Okay, so maybe this one here. Okay, let's copy this card. Let's go back to our code editors. And let's provide it here. Simply remove these book nodes, and let's provide this card here. Let's move it to the right a little bit. So just select the lines you want to move to the right side and just press tab, and this will add it to the right side. When you will press the shift and the tab at the same time, this will move it to the left side. Alright, there is one problem. You shouldn't use the classes in the JSX. You should use the class names. So just write your class name and simply paste it to all of your classes here. Class name, class name, class name here. And here is the citation. Alright, so when you will save this, we can go back here and you will go to our application. We will have here a card. Perfect. It's not actually perfect. It doesn't look that great, but let's add here also second card. Okay, so under this card, I will add a second card. Just simply copy the first card and paste it here. As soon as you will paste it, you will see the one problem. The thing with the JSX when you are returning from your component is that you should have a one root element. As you can see right now, I have two elements at the same level. I have here one card and a second card, and they are on the same level. When you would like to, I will revert this, when you would like to provide multiple elements, you need to have a one root element. You can just simply wrap it inside of a div element. If you are familiar with the divs, you can use div. Or if you don't want to provide any element, you can just simply provide here empty brackets, like this empty bracket here and empty closing bracket here, like this, and you can wrap your elements here. And now you can provide two elements at the same level, and also need to indent this to the right side, so like this, perfect. Okay, when we will save this, we will see here 2 cards. Amazing. Alright, so now you need to provide the data from your books array into your JSX here. Instead of the quote, I would like to see rather book title, and instead of this, I would like to rather see here book recap. So I'm pretty sure you're familiar how to access the arrays. You can simply provide here array, our variable books, okay, and when you would like to access the array, you need to provide a specific item in the array. You need to provide the index at which this item is in the array. So the indexing starts on the index of 0. So this is the first item 0 at the index of 0, and this is the second item at the index of 1. So simply square brackets and access here books on a number at the index of 0, and we want to access here title. There will be a slight problem here now. When you will save this, you will see here that you are accessing here books square bracket 0 and the title. So basically you are just interpreting it as a normal string. Of course, React doesn't know right now that you want to access here really your books array. The React thinks that you are writing here just normal string, books square bracket 0 and the title. So if you would like to provide your actual JavaScript expression, you need to wrap it in the curly brackets. Okay, so just wrap it here, curly bracket here, so ending, closing, and now you can see the font color change, and you see that you are accessing books at the index of 0 and this item title. Perfect, so now you should see here your name of the book, Lord of the Rings is here. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing now is that we want to iterate over our books array. We would like to iterate over our books, and each iteration I would like to retrieve the data of my book and provide them into some particular field in the card. Of course I can do it. I can remove the first card, the second card, I don't need it really. I can just write here iteration. Okay, so simply up here, as I told you, we want to write here now JavaScript expressions. So whenever we are writing JavaScript expressions, we are wrapping it in the curly brackets. Perfect. Now we'll access our books, and we'll provide here a function that you can iterate over your items, and also this function returns a new item depending on what you are returning from this function. For this function is conveniently called map. So our books array, use your function map, and now you need to provide your callback function inside. So provide your arrow function like this, and you need to return here a new item which will be displayed into your application. Okay, so let's write the return, normal brackets, and provide this card. We want to like to return from this array the new item which will be our card. So let's copy it and let's paste it inside of the return like this, and now you should be able to see your card. Now you don't need to access your books at 0 index at the title, because now this function you are providing to the map will be executed with each item of the books array. So you can conveniently call this item book here. So each iteration you will get here book from the books array. So the first iteration you will get the first book, and the second iteration you will get a second book from the array, and this will be this book you will get into this function you are providing to the map. Okay, so now fair enough, we have a book here, we can just access here book title. Perfect, and here we can, for example, I can actually remove this p element. I will remove it, and I will, in a footer, I will remove also this. I will just leave here citations. I will move it to the new line here like this. All right, and a footer down here, and I will access here in the curly brackets, because we are writing here JavaScript expression. We'll access here book.recap like this. I will write here comma, page, column, $, curly brackets. All right, I don't know why I'm writing here $. It shouldn't be here. It's just a curly brackets, and here will be book.last page. All right, so let's save this. Now we should see here 2 books, Lord of the Rings, Witcher, and here is the recap of a book and the page we left on. Perfect. One more thing, I would like to provide here also footer for the card where I will display the date. Okay, so for this, let's go back here and let's see how we can provide a footer. Okay, let's go down here, and here it is card footer. So we can copy this div. Okay, let's go back. And under our div, let's say here is div, under the card body, let's provide this card footer. Let's indent it properly to the right side, and let's provide here a class name because we are using class names in JSX. And instead of that, 2 days ago, let's provide here in the curly brackets our book.date, and to transform it into the string, because now when you will save this, you will go back, you will see that you are getting error. You can see here is the error. Objects are not valid as a React child. We need to transform it into the string. So yeah, let's do it. Let's just chain here after date to date string function like this, to date string, and this will transform it into the string of format of the date. Okay, now we have here date. Perfect. Okay, so now we would like to, of course, display these items as the cards. So as the cards we are seeing up here. Whenever you are doing it, we need to provide here some layout system. I don't want to really explain you layout system in Bootstrap. That's for other thing, for other course or for the other video. But basically, when you would like to style your cards into the rows, you need to provide here a new element. I will mark it here. So you need to have a so-called container first. This will be container. Instead of a container, you will have a rows, and each row is separated into the columns. So this will be your first card, second card, let's say, third card, fourth card, and so on, depending how many items you want to include to the row. So here is a container, okay, 3 dots. Here will be a row, and here will be column. By the default, each row consists of 12 columns. Okay, I will mark it later, but we need a container, row, and a column. Okay, so let's keep it in mind. I will remove this. Okay, and let's continue. Okay, so let's get back and let's do it. So first of all, we need to wrap all these items into a container. So right here, div, like this, and I will wrap all of these books into the container. So I'll wrap them like this. Let's write your class name, container, perfect. That's the first thing. The second thing, wrap it into the rows or div. Again, let's provide your ending tag here. Now we need to move it a little bit right. Okay, and let's write here class name will be a row. All right, and each row, let's see actually how it looks now. Okay, let's see. Okay, now it looks much better, but now we need to provide the columns into the row. Okay, so let's do it here in our iteration. So here we are returning this card, so let's write here return and wrap each card into columns. So I'll wrap here div and the ending div in the end of the card. All right, let's move it to the right and let's write here class name will be column md dash and the number, how many spaces this column will take. So let's say 4. I will explain very shortly what does it mean. Okay, so we have a container, we have a row, and we have a column. The exact structure that I showed you before. Okay, perfect. Okay, and we have now 2 items here, and in total we should have here 3 items if we would add one more item. If I would change here, let's say call md3, this means we will have the column will take 3 spaces. It'll be much smaller. Okay, because I told you, I'll mark it here, that each row, okay, let's imagine this is a row. Okay, so here is a row where are our cards. Each row has the default 12 columns. Okay, 12 columns. So each of these rows is separated by 12 columns. Okay, so this will be each row separated by 12 columns. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Right? So when I will say here that my column will take 3 spaces, I'm basically saying when I will add here, when I will provide the three cards, or when I will provide the 3 columns actually with the 3 spacings in them, this will be 4 columns per row. Okay, so the first column will take here 3 spaces, second card will take the 3 spaces, the third card will take the 3 spaces, and the fourth card will take the 3 spaces. Okay, not very nice drawing, but you get the point. When I will say that each column will take 4 spaces, so this means the first card will be here, the second card will be here, so 4 spaces, and the last card will be here 4 spaces. When I will say that my card will have 6 spaces, this means we will have only 2 items per row, so we will have 6 spaces here, alright, and 6 spaces here. So that's basically it. I didn't want to go really to the bootstrap details, but okay, I think this is quite important. So you have 12 columns per row, and you're just saying how much column will take this, how much spacing from this row it will take. So you need to always provide some number that will reflect this total number of 12 columns. Okay, I hope I didn't confuse you much, but since we are providing here now 4 columns, so this means, actually here we are providing 3 columns, this means we can have 4 items per rows, because each item takes 3 columns. 3 columns, 3 columns, 3 columns, and 3 columns. Okay, so that's for my drawing. Not very nice, but I guess you got a point now. Alright, so let's continue. Let's get back here, and we'll say here conveniently 4 spaces. So we will have 3 items per row. 3 times 4 is 12, so it will be nice white items. Let's provide here some padding on the top, so they're not so sticking to the top of our page. So let's get back. Let's go to our CSS. We don't have any CSS here, so I'll create a root CSS file. I will call it index.css. Alright, and in this file I will add the, let's say, body. Alright, I will write here padding top and let's say 150 pixels, 150 pixels, 150 pixels. Okay, like this. Let's save this, and we need to import it into index.js. So let's say down here, import the same folders /index CSS. Amazing. All right, perfect. Let's get back. Now we should have here padding of 150 pixels on the top. Okay, so we have our items. That's very great, but our app.js doesn't look that great. We are keeping everything in our app.js. I told you React is very modular. You should separate as much as possible to separate components, so it will ensure usability and readability of your code. Okay, so we'll be following these practices, and we'll be we will be breaking this code into multiple pieces. I will create here a new folder. I will call it components. So in the src folder, let's get a new folder, call it components. And in a components folder, I will create 2 new files. I will create here first file. I will call this component, let's call it books list or book list. And the second item will be book card. Okay, so let's create here a new file. Let's call it book list.js, and new file, and we'll call it book card.js. Both of these components will be functional components. So far you know only functional components. I didn't explain you any class components, and for the purpose of this course I'll be not using here class components because they are getting slowly not very used actually lately. Since the functional components were introduced with the hooks, you are just seeing functional components everywhere. So do not keep this course to this lecture super long. We'll go with the functional components here. So we'll create here a new function, okay, const, or you can write a normal function, it's up to you. We'll call it book list function, and we'll return here JSX for now, just empty, and let's export default book list. Export default book list. Let's do the same for a book card. I will copy this, I will save the file, I will go to book card, I will paste it here, and I will rename it for a book card. Book card, and let's export default book card. Now we can move some code from our app.js. So let's go to app.js, and what we can copy from here. What is our book list? So our book list is this entire iteration here, and return of this book card. So we can copy all of this iteration from here, starting with this curly bracket here, or ending with this curly bracket until here. So let's copy it and simply remove it from here. Now we'll go to a book list and we'll paste it inside of here. Okay, now you can see here issue because we don't have here root element that's wrapping this, but no worry about it. What I can do here, simply I can remove curly bracket here, curly bracket in the end, and I will remove this bracket here, and I can simply just return this as it is right now. So return books.map and return this piece of JSX. Okay, so you can also return components like this straight away, just a function call of the map. Map will return the new array of your items, and this should work as before. Okay, so now we have a book list component basically. We just moved code from app.js and we moved it into a book list. Okay, if you want to simplify it, you can write even simpler. When you are using arrow functions and you have only one expression in your function that you are returning, you can simply omit these curly brackets, so this curly bracket and this curly bracket down here, and also you can remove the return, so return here and this bracket here. You will have here just straight JSX with a div, like this, and also let's remove these spaces. That's much simpler, I would say. Okay, so straight away function call of the map and return here this JSX. Perfect. Okay, so if you have a book list, we can go to our app.js and let's provide here book list component. So up here on the top, we'll import here a book list from the same folder structure into components folder and retrieve a book list like this, and let's provide it into here. So it's a component. When you would like to initialize it, you need to write here these pointy brackets and book list. Perfect. Alright, so we can save these. Now let's go to our browsers and we should see here a couple of issues. Books are not defined. Of course, it is coming, you can see this line from the book list JS line 6. So we can go to our book list line 6 and you will see the books are of course not in the scope of this file. We don't have here any books. And here comes props. Props is very important concept, and props is concept how to pass data from your parent component into the child component. In the context of our app.js file, our root component, our parent component is the app.js, our app component, and our child of our app component is a book list component. So here we can utilize concept called props and we can send some data to the book list. We can send the data of our books. So simply enough, when you want to pass some props, you will specify here a new prop like this. First, you need to provide a name of your prop, how you want to call it. I want to call simply these books. This is my books, so I will call it books equals sign, and now we need to assign here some value into books prop. So since the books is the variable, we need to wrap it in the curly brackets. We cannot just write here books like this. We will get here error, so we need to inform React that we are providing here actual expression. So curly brackets, and I'll write here books. Okay, so now I'm passing to book list component books prop, which is my books array. Now we can go to our book list, and when you want to retrieve the props, you will receive them as the argument in the function. So you can specify here a new argument. You will call it props. Usually that's a convenient name. Usually you will see it's called props. And from the props we can retrieve our books. So I can write here props dot books like this, and this will work the same as before. When you will save this, get back here, and you have here your items of your books. Amazing. Of course, this is just the argument in the function. You can call it whatever you want. I can call it my super props, and there is no big deal in that. Of course, you should stick with the props, but you can call it my super props. Of course, now we need to access here my super props dot books. Everything will work as before. No big deal. But I will reference them as the props. Alright, so we are getting here props. When you want to simplify it, you can also write your const books, and you can access your books like this, props.books. Alright, that's the other way, and then we can access here just a book simply enough. Now we can save this, everything will be working as before, no big deal here. Also, when you want to simplify it even more, you can destructurize the books from the props. It's the same way, but the shorter syntax. When you will wrap it in the curly brackets, you are saying that you want to extract books from the props, so it's the same as accessing props.books. But now it's a nice expression like this. Okay, so just like this, you can do so. Everything will work, or simply you can destructurize this in the parameters of the functions here. So we can just write here curly brackets and we can access here books. We can destructurize them, and I think this is the simplest way. Now we spare the one line of the code. We are seeing here straight away that we are receiving here books prop, and we will pass these to the return. Okay, so this should work. We can go back, and now we have here our books still. Perfect. This is working. Okay, so since we created also book card.js, we need to, or we want to separate our card from here into the book card. So what is our card here? Our card component will be this part here. Okay, so our card component. Okay, so let's copy it. This part here, let's copy, remove it, and let's go to book card. Now we'll return it. Okay, so we're returning JSX. Let's remove this. Let's move it to the left side. And yeah, let's keep it as this. Let's save this. Let's go to book list and let's provide here book card. Okay, so let's import here book card from where? So same folder, book card, and we'll provide here our book card, and we'll pass here. Now we need to pass our book because we need to display here, remember, book title, book recap, book last page, book date, and so on. We don't have this data there, so we need to pass them through the props. So we'll write here book card and we'll access them. We'll pass their book, let's say, okay, and we'll pass here book. Okay, now everything should work, so let's save this, let's go back here. And book is not defined. For some reason we are not passing it. So let's see, book, oh, we are not retrieving the book prop from the book card. So we need to go to book card component and we need to get it from a prop. So either way you will write your props and you will access here props.book, or just straight away the structurize here from the props book. All right, and then everything should work now. All right, so now you are seeing your application is working exactly as before. We can do some more changes and learn some new stuff. Okay, let's go back to our configurators. And what I can do here additionally, or actually what I can show you additionally, that on this name of the props, really, it's up to you how you will choose your namings. So I can actually call this prop not a book, but I can call it, let's say, my book or my data. Of course, when I will pass this prop as under this name, I will get here error because now I cannot access my data because I'm in my book card. I'm passing here my data prop, but I'm retrieving here book prop, so there is no such a prop called book when I'm passing it, what I'm passing in from the book list. So I am passing my data, right? So I should call it my data, and then I need to change here my data title and so on, like this. Okay, and everywhere. Okay, I'll revert these. Of course, you should choose the reasonable namings that reflect your data you are working with. So I will call it simply book, and in a book list, let's go back. Of course, we want to call it book. Okay, let's save this now. Let's go back to our browsers and everything should work. When you will right click and you will inspect your page, you will see the one warning here. Go to console and you will see here each child in a list should have a unique key prop. So whenever you are iterating your data, as we are doing now, we are iterating over our data in our array. Whenever you are doing this, you need to differentiate between your data. You need to inform the React that you are working with the different types of data. You need to do it with a key prop. Okay, so let's see our iteration. Our iteration is happening here in a book list. So whenever we are iterating here, to the root element or a root component of the iteration, you need to provide a key prop. Okay, so here to the div, I need to provide here key. And the value of the key should be some unique information of the item. Okay, this shouldn't be random information, this should be something unique. So what is a unique on our card so far? We don't have any unique information on our card, so I will differentiate between every card with the ID value, or my date is, actually my date is good. Okay, so I can get here key of the book.date and to date string, like this. Okay, now I will save this. Let's get back, let's inspect, let's refresh. Oh, all right. That's actually very good. Encounter two children with the same key. You can see our key on the first item and the second item is the same because we are creating these items at the same time. It's happening very fast, so they are sharing the same key. So we need to provide some more unique value, something that really differentiate these cards. Okay, so what I will do for now, let's get back. For now, I'll just hardcode here in our app.js in our books parameter called ID. I'll write here this is ID1, and here I'll write this ID of 2. This is pretty unique, describing my data here. Okay, so now I can go to our book list, and instead of this date here, I will access here book.id. And now we should get rid of this error because first item has an ID of 1 and a second item should be ID of 2. Okay, let's go back. Okay, and now when we will inspect here, I will not getting here any error any longer. This is especially very important. You need to provide the keys when you are manipulating your data. For example, if I would change the order of the data, if I would remove the one item, or if I would add here more items into the array, the React need to keep internally track of these items, and the React is keeping track of this data according to ID, or the key actually, according to the key prop as we specified. So that's very important that your keys are unique, so the React knows when you are messing up with this data or you're manipulating this data, it can keep the track of its positions in the array. Alright, so, okay, that will be actually for future. We'll be not manipulating our data yet, but remember, whenever you are iterating your data, provide the unique values to the key. Okay, let's do more changes. Let's work more with the props. So I don't really like how we are passing here, that we have here a container, a row like this. Everything should be as nice components. So I will create a component for a container. I will create a container for the component for the row, and I will create a component for our column here for this div. Let's do it. Let's go to our components folder. Let's create here a new folder, and I will call it shared folder. And in my shared folder will be heavily reusable components. So I'll create here a new file, and I will call it row.js. I'll create here one component from container.js and one component for column.js. All right, I will create this component, so I will write here const row, okay, like this, and return here. Return, I'll write here actually this, let's write here the brackets, let's write here div, and the class name in the row is a row. Okay, I will copy, actually let's first export it, so export default row, let's copy everything, okay, and let's go to container, paste it here, let's change it for a container, class name on this case should be container, and here should be container. Now let's go to a row, and here should be column. Class name should be col, empty in this case, we are providing here 4 spaces, and here should be column. Alright, let's save this now, and let's provide these components into our book list, book card, and also app.js, because here we have a container, and actually here we have also a row. Okay, so let's do it like this. Okay, and I think I should place this row into my book list. I think it would be better. Okay, so I'll actually, just for the sake of example, I will remove this row from here. Alright, I'll go back here and I will go to book list. And I'll provide this row here, so I'll wrap it into the row. So in this case, we have a one root element we want to return from here, so I will wrap it into brackets, because whenever you have a multiple expressions here, we will wrap it in the normal brackets like this. Move it to now we need to indent it like this. A little bit complicated, not very visible what we are doing here. Okay, like this. Let's write here div, okay, and this will be our row, right? So here is this div. Let's move it to the right. Now you can see inside of our JSX we are writing expressions, so need to be wrapped in the curly bracket like this. All right, and let's indent it like this. Okay, this is my final indentation, and don't forget here class name of row. Okay, like this. So it should be written this way, and in app.js I remove my row and I move this row here, so we have a row, and inside here we have this expression to return our cards. Alright, let's go back to our browsers. Everything is working amazing, and now we can reuse our shared components. So let's go to our app.js, and what I will do here, I will copy here a container component. Okay, so let's import here our container from, let's go to our shared folder, not setup test, let's go to our shared folder. To our components folder, to our components shared, and we are going to container, all right? I'll get this container, and instead of this, I'll write here container, and I will close it into the container. There will be a slight problem now. Let's save this, let's go back to our browsers, and you will see that we are not displaying here anything.
Actually, when you will inspect it, so let's right click, inspect, click here, you will see we have here body, we have here root. When we'll open root, we should have here a container, but in a container we don't have any items, we don't have any books here. This is happening because, of course, we are providing here a container component. Container component is returning class name div with the class of a container, but inside of this class here, inside of this div, we don't have anything to render. There is no content here. So actually we need to pass here our content, and whenever you are passing component into the another component, as we are doing here, we are passing into the container component, we are passing book list component. These data are passed also on the props. So whenever you have a one component passed into other component, the parent component will receive the props. Let's go to containers, we will receive here props. And on these props will be passed to you with the help of the React library. Will be passed here props.children. So now we have here access to props.children. I can actually console log here props.children. Actually, this will be just an object, so maybe you'll not see here anything, but we have access to props.children here. When you'll go back here, you see you have an object here. Okay, so it's a React element. You can actually see the type of the React element, and it's an array of the two items. Okay, that's very interesting. What are books? All right. So what we can do here, you can simply pass this props children here. So we can write here props of children, and it will render your children, which is in this case our book list. Of course, this will be interpreted as a string. Whenever you are writing expressions, wrap it into the curly brackets like this. I will remove the console log, and you will see now we will display here our cards back. We can simplify this expression because since our container function just has a one return here, nothing else, we can omit the curly brackets. We can remove the return, we don't need the return in this case, and we can remove the normal bracket here and normal bracket in the end. Alright, the other thing with the arrow function is whenever you have only one parameter in the arguments, you can also omit brackets here. You can just write here props like this. Okay, much nicer syntax. Okay, like this. Okay, now let's do it to the row, because to the row we'll be passing also our children components. So let's do the same thing here. I will just pass here props. All right, and I will remove this line, this, and I will just leave here call MD4. Actually, this is a column, so let's pass here our children here. Okay, so curly bracket and a props dot children. Amazing. And let's do the same for our wait a second, I'm in a row and I'm writing here column. In a column I'm writing row. Okay, so I have it other way around. What we can do, just to save the time, I will just rename it. Rename column for col2, and I will remove the row. I will rename the row for the column. All right, and I will remove col2 back to row like this. Okay. So column, all right, and let's do the same with the row. So let's go to row.js, and yeah, let's write here children. So let's provide here props. Let's remove curly bracket here. Let's remove the return brackets here. All right, and like this. Okay, and here we'll go our props.children, because all these components, these will be our parent components in which we'll be passing data, nothing else. This will be very simple components. There will be no logic there, no functionality, only get the data, pass this data into the class name of the row in this case. Alright, let's continue. Let's go. Our app.js is completed. Now we need to, actually we don't need these brackets here. I will remove them. We have here root element of the container now, so we can just provide here a container. Okay, this here. Okay, now we can go to our book list. Into the book list we need to pass here rows, so let's import here a row from our shared components. So let's go to shared and the row. All right, and let's pass here a row here and the row in the end. Perfect, looks much better. And let's go to our book card and let's do the same here. So let's import here a column. Import here a column from shared and the column. All right, and let's pass here in Oh, okay, we are passing the column in our book list, right? So my mistake. Let's go to our book list and let's pass also column here. Okay, and here instead of this, here I'll remove it. I'll pass here column and a column here. Of course, now we'll get here errors because I have just removed key. That's necessary when you're iterating, so we'll get here error, but yeah, everything should work. The only thing here will be not working now, actually it will be working now, is that we cannot specify here our desirable column. So I don't want to have each column to be 4 spaces wide. Maybe I want to have a column with 3 spaces or maybe with 6 spaces and so on. So we should pass this parameter to the props. Okay, so let's go to our book list and let's say here this will be the size. Let's say we'll call this parameter MD. And let's pass here MD will be the size of let's pass it as a string. Let's say MD will be size of the six spaces in the row. All right, so now we can receive this as the prop in our column component. So let's go to column. Now we can receive here also from the props this MD prop. So we can pass it into our class here. So we can write here column dash MD dash the value from props.md. If you would like to interpolate here the value from the variable instead of the normal brackets, normal quotes, you will use here backticks. And my keyboard is just on the left side of the Y key. So it just it's normal quotation, but it's like it's turned to the left side, so it's a backtick. It's called backtick. Whenever you are providing this, you need to wrap it into the curly brackets like this. Okay, so now you are providing the same. You are providing the string of the column MD4. No big deal here, no big change, nothing changed. The same class is provided. But now we can provide here some variable value from the variable. So I can remove this 4. And this 4 will get this dynamically from the props. So right here, whenever you are interpolating variable, you will write here dollars and curly brackets. And you will access your props. And how we are calling these props? What we are passing through the book card. We are calling it, not from a book card, from a book list. We are calling it MD prop. So I'll pass here props.md. Props.md holds value 6. So this will be added into the final string, which is a called -md-6. Okay, let's save. Now you will see it's taking the 6 spaces. In total 12 spaces in the column. 12 divided by 6 is a 2, so we have only 2 items. And now I can pass here whatever I want. I can go to my book card, a book list, and I can pass here, let's say, 4 spaces per column, and I will have a 4 spaces per column. Perfect. Okay, that's working just great, but we'll be still having issue with our keys, so we need to provide a key into our column. Let's get here call, and key will be our book.id. Alright, so working great, book ID, and let's see, let's refresh, let's see, inspect, and everything is working just great. Alright guys, so now it's time for more complicated concept from it's not that complicated, but it can be when you are starting with just with the React, and this concept is called state. State is very important concept because this is the way how you're making your application dynamic, how you can present the changes in your applications in real time without refreshing your application. So whenever, for example, I will add here a new item, I will add a new item to my application, or whenever I delete item, it will get deleted. Or when I want to update some value, this value will get updated in real time. Okay, let's introduce concept. I think the easiest way to understand this will be the concept on some incrementation of the number. So let's introduce it here. Let's go back. Okay, let's for a sake of example, let's go to our app.js, and just for now, I will create here some number. Okay, let's go here and let's call it, let's say, let normal variable called counter, and counter will be starting at the index of 0. It will get this counter and will provide it just above the book list, so he will be counter. Okay, now we should have C0. And let's write here buttons to increment and decrement the counter. So under this, I'll write here button like this, increment, and a button for the decrement. Okay, decrement here. All right, let's see. Okay, and increment, decrement, perfect. I'll just check how long I'm recording because I don't want to keep it super long. Okay, 50 minutes, great. Okay, I can keep it 20 minutes longer, maximum. Okay, so increment, decrement, what we want to happen here, whenever I will press the increment, I would like to increment the number. Whenever I will decrement, I will decrement this number. Okay, so let's get back here, and what we need to do. We need to provide here some click event. So when you want to provide a click event in the React, you will write here on and name of the event, on click in this case. And to this you will provide a function which will be executed whenever you are clicking on the element. So on click, curly brackets, and the same you will do on a decrement, but we need to provide here actual function. Let's define this function here. I will call it const, and let's say function will be called increment. Okay, like this, normal arrow function. Let's provide it here, increment, increment. Amazing. Just to see that it's working, I will write here console log, I will write here counter plus plus. Okay, let's save this. Back here, let's see console and click here increment, and we are incrementing number. Now I would like to present this change in the real time into our application. As you can see here, I'm incrementing number. I'm incrementing here. You can see I'm consoling log out, and this number is getting incremented, but these changes are not getting into our actual JSX. My component is not getting re-rendered. Okay, so when I go to elements, and I will find here my root container, my number 0, it will not get changed. I can increment, decrement, nothing is happening. And for this, we need the concept of the state. We need to keep our value in the state. That's the way how the React is keeping its reactivity. Okay, let's go back. Whenever you want to introduce here state, you need to provide here hook function. Okay, the hook functions are functions that you can hook into the other functions in the React environment. They are called hook functions, and they are usually prefixed with a use keyword. So let's import here function called use state like this, and this is from React, and just provide here use state up here. Okay, I will remove this counter, we don't need it, and I will write here use state. All right, and the result of the useState function will be stored into some variable. Okay, we can call here variable, call const, and we can call this variable, let's say counter state. Okay, equal sign like this, and semicolon. Okay, the thing about this function is it's a return array of 2 items. First item in the array, in the counter state, will be your state itself. It will be just variable holding the empty undefined value in this case. The second value will be actual function, and the function is used for mutation of this value. Okay, so when I will provide here, let's say, I will console log it, so you will see it console log in a counter state. I told you it's array, so I will access here counter state on the index of 0, first item, and I will console log here counter state on the index of 1. Back here, counter is undefined. Okay, of course we don't have a counter now, so just remove this counter from here, and let's save. No, one more counter here, my mistake, here. Okay, now it should be fine. Let's get back here and let's inspect. So right click, inspect, see console, and you can see here first value, it's undefined because this value is undefined yet, but the second value is a function that's used for mutation of the state. Okay, so now we know what we have here. One thing, what you will provide, you can provide a use state value. You can provide here, let's say 5. You can provide here a string, hello world. And this is the value which will be assigned to your first item in the array. So when I will write here that I would like to assign to use state 0, my first value, which is my state, so the item on the index of 0 will hold the value 0 now. Inspect, you will see, refresh, you will see it's holding the 0. When I will write here hello world, all right, hello world, then I will have here hello world. When I will refresh, hello world. And the second value is a function that will be used for mutation of this value. Okay, so let me write it for you. So this use state will return 2 values. Okay, these values are in the array. Okay, so first value is my actual state, and the second value is my my mutation. That's the function that's used for mutation of the state. Okay, so this will be, let's call it mutation. Mutation. Okay, mutation. Okay, so state holds the actual value we will assign with the use state, maybe 0, and the mutation is the function that will change this value. So when I will call here mutation is a function, I can normally execute it, mutation, I can execute as a function. I will say here, let me mutate this value to value of 30. This will execute this mutation and will assign here, instead of a 0, it will assign 30. And also the other important thing will happen when a mutation is executed, your functional component is re-executed. This entire function here of your up component will be executed. Okay, so this will execute component. And it makes sense. So whenever my component will re-execute it after mutation, I have here a new value. I will have a new value in my counter state, and this value will get propagated into the JSX. So that's why you are re-executing after you're mutating. Let's see an example. The first thing, now you know that you have here array of 2 items. That's very important to know. So with this knowledge, we can simplify this expression, and I can say here, I am getting here array. I know on the first item I have my state, so I can call it, let's say, I can call this state conveniently counter, and the second one is a function. I can call it as I want. I can call it set counter. All right, and now I can display here, as previously, curly brackets and a counter. Perfect. Okay, and I will provide here default value of 0. Okay, now when you will go back, everything will be working. You have here 0. Okay, now when I'm in an increment, I can call here function set counter, and I can increment my counter by 1 plus plus counter plus plus. And now when you will go here, click here counter. Actually, you need to do it differently. Set counter, not counter plus plus, but you will write here counter plus 1. All right. Let's save this now. Okay, let's refresh, and you can see you can increment your value, and your component is getting re-executed. So when I will inspect here elements, and I will see here my container here, I'll increment, and you can see only this value is changing. No, my other components are not re-executed, only this component is getting re-executed of my number, getting changed. Of course, decrement and increment doing the same thing, because we specify that we are just incrementing in this case. And the other important thing here, I will write here debugger so you will see what's happening. Let's refresh now. You will see it will jump here into our breakpoint. You can just skip, go outside of this breakpoint, but you can inspect these values that the counter is 0, set counter is a function to mutate the counter. You can skip over, so you just click here this arrow. This will execute a second time. Normally this shouldn't happen, but since we defined here in our app.js that we have here in the index.js that we have a React strict mode will execute your component twice, so that's the thing here, no big deal. Okay, so when I will click here a second time, resum script execution will jump outside. Now, whenever I will mutate, so set counter is executed, this will re-execute my entire app component. So I will call here, I'll click here on increment. You can see my entire component is re-executed. Counter is now 1 because I have incremented it before, and my component is returning the new view basically with a counter of 1, and that's what getting displayed here. Okay, also second time because of a strict mode. Let's click here continue, and we have here 1, and that's what's happening. Okay, remember, use state returning 2 values. One value is holding your state, the second value is function that's used for mutating your state. Whenever you are mutating your state, your entire component function is re-executed. When you want to actually decrement the value, you can do it like this. I will write here increment. I will wrap it into the separate function like this. I will provide here anonymous arrow function. And I will write here increment, and I will pass here value. Let's say I would like to increment here by 1, and here I will increment by -1, and I will pass here this value or incrementator or inc. All right, and I will write here counter plus inc. Okay, and now we should decrement also. So increment and decrement. So that's how this. So So that's how the state works, okay? So if we are mutating, re-executing. And of course, you can call these values as you want. That's your naming. We are just destructurizing these items from array. We can call it, let's say, I don't know. We can call it a number or a num and a set num. And of course, now we need to rename these things. So we need to rename here set counter to set num and the num plus increment and here num. Okay, so the naming is completely up to you. This will work as before. All right, but actually we don't want to have here any incrementations yet. That was just a for example of use state. We can remove it, and also we can remove the number. I showed you this because I would like to get this data remotely. I would like to get them from the other file, and I would like to set them to the state. So let's copy this data. We can remove them, and let's provide them to the separate file. In the src folder, I will create a new file, and I will call it actions, or I will call it, let's call it API for now, api.js, and let's provide this data here. I will create here a function which I will export straight away. I'll write here export, and I will call this function const and get data or fetch data. Get data. We are not fetching anything remotely now. Get data. All right, and this will simply return my books. So return books like this, or call it not get data, but get books rather. Get books. Okay, now we will go into our app.js. All right, and we would like to get this function here. So right here, import in the curly brackets get books. From where we are importing it, we are in lowercase get books. We are importing it from the same folder structure API slash or API.js, right? So just an API. You would like to fetch this data, but the usual way how you're doing in the React when you are fetching data, you can either use hook function or you will use here hook function, use effect. Use effect is very interesting function. Okay, let's write here use effect like this. You will register here use effect, and in the use effect you will pass function. It can be arrow function, it can be normal function as well. But the point is to execute here use effect with your custom function inside. Instead of this function, we would like to execute get books. Or actually, I wanted to show you the example on the counter, because I think it will be very beneficial to see the example of the counter with the use effect here. Okay, so if you still can, I'm sorry for this. I'm just improvising here. I'm not really have anything in front of me. I'm just coding with you. What we can do, you still can. You can just revert the changes. Please, let's do it like this. Let's revert changes, so we'll keep here still counter. Okay, I'll revert these books here. Okay, no big deal. Let's keep here increment counters like this and set counter. And now let's introduce here use effect function. Use effect is very interesting function. Like this, use effect. Make sure you are importing it from React. So use effect from React. And let's write here console log, for example, or debugger if you want, and hello use effect. Okay, like this. Okay, let's save this. Let's go back to our browsers. When you will go here and I will refresh this, you will see in a console log hello use effect. So use effect function is executed when your component is initialized. So our app component is initialized, our use effect is executed once. But use effect is also executed every time you will change your state. So whenever we will change the counter, the use effect will be re-executed. So now we'll click here increment, you can see hello use effect is executed as well. So this is a side effect function. Whenever you're doing your changes in your state, the use effect is also executed. That's very important to know, because use effect can be used for fetching the initial data and setting them to the state, but use effect can be also used to perform some side effects upon your data when you are changing your state. Okay, so there are a few things we need to know also about the use effect. Whenever you will provide the use effect, you can also provide your second value. So after this function, provide your array. This is called dependency array. When you will provide this array as an empty array, your use effect function will be executed only once. So now we will provide here this, and I will write here increment You can refresh, you can see hello use effect, but anytime I will increment, hello use effect is not executed. It's executed only once when my app component is initialized. This is called dependency array because there is a reason for it. This means that the use effect will be only called when your dependency in this array will change. So when I will write here increment, so my dependency will be actually my counter. You can see counter here. This use effect will be executed only when the counter value will change. So I will save this, let's go back. You will see now whenever I will change the increment, hello use effect is executed as well. But when I will call the use set counter, so I'm changing my state and I will provide here all the time the same value, let's say 10, set counter 10, you will see, I will refresh, use effect is called first time, increment, use effect is called second time because we changed from the value of 0 to the value of 10, but now when I will click here increment, it's not called any longer because I am changing state to the 10 value which we already have, so my value is not changing basically, so use effect is not called. Okay, so that's the things you need to know. Use effect when no dependency provided is called every time your state will change. Whenever you'll provide your empty dependency array, this will called only once. Whenever you will provide your actual dependency as for example counter, your state, this will be called only when the counter will change. When your counter will not change, it will be not executed. So if you have a multiple states here, let's say you have here also some other state and set other state. So when you will provide your dependency array, okay, so now the use effect will be only changing when your some other state will be changing. Okay, so now when we'll create here increment plus or the counter plus increment, this will be not called hello use effect. It will be called only when some other state will change. Okay, so we'll go back here, it will refresh. Use effect is called initially, and every time some other state will change, of course we are not changing some other state, so there is no reason to call the use effect. So that's called dependency array. Okay, now I can continue with our application. So we can remove the increments at counter. Okay, so just a little bit of sidewalk here, so we can remove the buttons, we don't need them. Also a counter. And we can continue, we can fetch here our data of the books. Okay, so I can remove the books from here and we'll import our function we have created before in a curly brackets called get books from the API, all right, and we'll fetch them in our use effect function. Okay, so I'll write here use effect, provide your function, and I want to call this only once. Okay, so if I want to call something once, we'll provide here empty dependency array. We'll also create here state. Okay, so let's write here const, we'll call this state books, and the function to mutate this state will be called set books. All right, and we'll write here use effect like this, and we'll get here our books. So from a get books function, so const new books, let's write here get books like this, and we'll write here set books, and we'll get here new books, and this for this books state will pass into our book list like this, books. All right, so let's save, let's go back to our browser as everything should work. So after I will refresh, I can read property undefined. I have made some typo here. Object is not iterable, symbol iterator. Okay, let's get back here. Let's see our get books. I will go to API, get books, return books. Okay, so everything is, it looks good here. I will just verify that we are getting our new books here. So I'll write here debugger. Or one thing, guys, okay, I see there is an issue. Since our use effect, oh, this should be use state, my mistake, guys. Okay, so use state, and our initial value of the books will be undefined in this case. So if you want to provide a default value for your books, let's provide your value, in this case, empty array. Okay, now it should work. All right, let's get back, and when you refresh, use state is not defined. We need to just import it from the React. So use state, let's import from the React here. Now it should be good. Okay, and we have here our items from the state now. Okay, so this is working just great. Fetching data, getting to the new books, and setting them after this component is re-executed, and we are passing here books to the book list. We can also simplify it in the use effect. I can just get books straight away and I can pass it to the set books if you prefer it this way. Okay, so everything should work as before. Just verify this. We need to verify every step. What I would like to do now, I would like to provide here a form and I would like to create here actual data of our book. Okay, for this we need to introduce a new component which will be responsible for creating of the new data. So let's go back to our coding editors. All right, and let's provide it in our components. I will create here a new file in our components folder, and I will call it book create or book create form, create form, create form.js. All right, and we will import here we don't import anything. I don't know why I'm writing. Let's write your const book create form. Book create form. Okay, functional component. Let's export default book create form. Let's return here some JSX, and we need to think what we want to return here. We like to return here form. So let's get this form from Bootstrap web page. Get here, let's go to Bootstrap here and let's find here forms. Okay, so here are forms. Let's look here what we need. Let's say form. Okay, so form in one line will be great. So everything in one line will be amazing. Let's scroll down here more. Something in one line form. Okay, let's scroll more. I think there is here. Column sizing. This is perfect. So let's simply copy everything from this form. Let's get it here and let's paste. Let's move it to the right. You have seen here issues because in the React environment, every component in JSX needs to be closed and these inputs are open. So you need to provide only backslashes in the end, like this, backslash here and backslash here. All right, now let's save this and let's change also class names, classes for a class names. I can just go to here to edit and replace, and I want to replace here class with a class name and replace everything with this button here. All right, and now we can also move it to the new line so it's more readable like this. Okay, and the type input class name placeholder, input class name placeholder, and placeholders will be different. In this case it will be title, this will be a recap, and this will be last page. In the case of the last page, type of the input will be number because we would like to input a number actually. Now let's save this, let's get this book create form, let's go to our app.js and let's provide this component here. So let's import here book create form from our components, book create form. All right, let's get this component and let's paste it above our book list. Let's save this, let's go back to browsers and let's see it. Okay, we have a form. It would be great to add here some spacing. We can do it like this. I can create here a custom component in my shared folder, a new file. I will call it divider.js, and divider component will be just simple functional component. So let's write here const divider. We don't need to write here any curly brackets. It will be just one expression of the div. It can be empty div, that's no big deal. Let's write here export default divider. And divider, I will define here the amount of the pixels I would like to provide a margin on the bottom of this component. So I'll write here, let's say size, destructurize it because we'll destructurize it from the props, size, prop from a divider. And when you want to provide the inline stylings to a React, you can just write here style prop, and you will provide here double curly brackets for the object, and you will provide here object of your stylings. For a margin bottom, the key is a margin bottom together. You'll provide your value in the pixels, so let's write here backticks because it will be string expression. You'll write here dollars and curly brackets, and you'll get your size. You'll be passing from outside, and next to it you'll write pixels, px. So divider will be just providing some margin bottom depending on the size you will pass through the props. So when I will pass the size over 200, we'll pass here the style for a margin bottom over 200 pixels. Okay, let's get this divider. Let's go to our app.js.
let's copy the divider here. So let's import here divider from components shared and divider. All right, and let's write here divider under book create form, and let's provide here a size. Let's say will be 100 pixels. Okay, let's get back here, and now we have this divider here. Oh, let's provide here 50 pixels. 50 pixels. Perfect. And let's provide here some text. Create your book or add new book. Okay, so let's go to back to our book create form. To add text there, just right here, let's say h1 create a new book or add new book. Or what are you reading? What are you reading? Okay, let's say this. Okay, perfect. So what are you reading? What are you reading? Okay, so now what we need to do, what our challenge is to provide here values into the form's inputs, and let's retrieve them. We need to use again some events. We need to use here change event. So when you want to get here change event, you need to provide here on change prop or JSX attribute here on change, and on change accepts the function. So to provide your actual function. Okay, so we'll define this function up here. We'll write here const and let's say handle change. This will be our function, arrow function like this, and we'll pass it into on change here. Okay, to this function you will get here event. This is automatically passed by the React to your function. You will get here event, and from this event you can retrieve the value. So you can get here console log, and you can pass here event.target.value you will have there. Okay, let's save. Okay, and now when I will be writing here in the console, you will be seeing as the value change. All right, so now we know how to get a value. What we need to do, we need to introduce the state into our form and pass these values into the form. Okay, so I'll write here new state. So I'll write here const, let's say new book, and set new book. I'll write here use state function. You will import this. Don't forget to import it from the React. Use state from React, and let's pass here initial value will be empty object. Now whenever I will handle change, I will set new book here, set new book. I will set here key is in this case title. Okay, so this will be title, and the value will be event.target.value. All right, and let's see, we are changing value more dynamically. So under this div, just before the form will end, I will write here curly brackets and a json.stringify, and I will write here new book. So this will provide your stringified object into the view. Okay, so you can see empty object by default. When I will start typing here, let's say hello world, you can see this text here. So perfect. So now you know how to change a state with the value we are writing into the input. Now we need to apply it to our other inputs. But of course, we don't want to do it this way, because this way we are always changing the title. So what we have to do, we would have to have the three functions for our three inputs, and that's not very convenient. You can imagine we would have here one function for handle title change. We would have a second function for the handle recap change. And here we'll be changing recap with the event.target value, but that's not very convenient. Of course, this would work. I could pass here handle title change, and here I can pass handle recap change. And you will see when I will be changing, it will be changing recap, and also you can see right now we are overriding the both of the values. So we are creating always new books. Whenever I will change one input, it will create a new book. When I will change the title input, it will create a new book only with the title. So to prevent this, you need to do it slightly differently. You need to pass here also your previous data of a new book. Usually we'll do it like this. You will get a new book here, comma title, and you will destructurize the previous data you already have defined before on the new books like this, and this should now work. Okay, so let's get back, and now you will see I will write here title hello world, and here I will write a recap, hi there, and it's working perfect. But this still doesn't fix our issue we have currently, that we need to provide here two separate functions.
If we want to create only one function, we can also specify on the input, we can provide here attribute called name, and I can provide the name of my input, which will reflect my data of the new book. So let's say my input for the title is of course title. The input for name for the for this is recap. Okay, so this name will be recap. And this name will be our last page. So last page. Oops, not the type. Last page here. All right, so now I can actually get this value from the event. You will see when I run your console log, I can get here event.target.name, which will be our name of the input we have specified. So now I will go here, you will see the name is actually title. So now I can dynamically provide this title into here. Instead of this title, which is hard-coded now, I can provide actually title or whatever name of the input from event itself, from the event target.name. So I can get this event.target.name and I can pass it instead of the title, but of course this will not work like this because if you would like to provide the keys dynamically to the object, you need to wrap them in a square brackets. And this will provide a key from the actual variable. Okay, so this will be the title or the last page or the recap, depending how you defined your name. And this way, I can simply rename this for a handle change. Handle change, I can just remove the event here. I can remove this and I can provide a handle change to all of my inputs if they have a specified name attribute. So I can get here handle change, oops, and the handle change to last page. And this should freely work, because I'm providing this data dynamically from our event. Okay, so I'll save this, you'll go back, refresh, hello world, recapped. It's nice, all right, and last page 23, and it's working. Perfect, so that's done. We can also simplify it even more. Let's say I would like to destructurize my name and the value from event target. You can do so. You can just destructurize your name and the value from your event.target like this, and you can get here a name and the value. I think this is more clear what's happening here. This will work exactly the same. Don't know why the set new book is a little bit faded. We are using it here. Okay, no big deal. It's working. Or actually, it doesn't work. Okay, so I have here some issue event target and the name and the value. I can access name before initialization. Okay, let's see. Let's go back to our coding editors. All right, and okay, let me see it. So we are target dot. This should be semicolon here. Okay, now it should be okay. Okay, so let's refresh. All right, working, perfect. Now what we need to do, we need to get this data. We need to submit this data and we need to pass them and add them into our book list. Okay, so to submit this data, let's utilize here button. So under the form, let me see, here is a div for form row. Okay, so under the form row, let's write here button. Let's write your class name. In a bootstrap, you can stylize your button with a btn and a btn-primary. This will create a blue button. All right, and let's write here create or add. Let's save. Let's go back. Okay, now it's sticking to the form itself. So if you would like to create some margin just with a bootstrap, you can add just an empty for margin top -2. This will add a few spaces on the top of the button like this. All right, perfect. So now when we are clicking this add, I would like to submit my data from the form. So I will create a new function up here. I will call it handle submit. So handle submit. And just for now, I will alert here my data. Okay, so alert and my new book. All right, like this. Let's save and let's provide the handle submit to the button. So let's move it to the new line and let's provide here an event called on click. So whenever we are clicking on the button, we would like to call here handle submit. Let's save this. Let's go back. Write here hello world. Let's click here add, and you can see here we are adding this. We are we are providing to handle submit our object, which is our object of the new book. But as soon as I will click here OK, this getting this disappeared, and you see your browser is getting a refresh. Notice here, I'll remove this alert for now. I'll remove this. Whenever I will click here now, your browser is getting refreshed, your page is getting refreshed. Because whenever you have a button in the form and you are clicking on this button, the default behavior in HTML is to submit your form and the refresh page. If you want to prevent this, of course, we don't want to refresh our page. You just go to your button and you will access here, you will write here type, and you will write here this is type of the button, and this will not refresh your page. So button. Now when I will write here something you can see it's not refreshing any longer. Okay, let's write here again alert. Okay, so let's write here alert. If you would like to see here your data, let's write here json.stringify and stringify new book. All right, let's save, let's get back. Now let's refresh, let's write here data, last page, and and you see here your data. There's one small problem. Whenever I will provide here only title, I will click here add. We are still adding new book, but of course I would like to provide all of the data I am writing in the form. So for now, I will just do a very simple check before we will submit our data. I will write here if statement, and I will write here if we don't have our new book title recap and the last page, then simply don't alert me here anything. So I'll write here if I don't have exclamation mark, if I don't have a new book, the title, or I don't have a new book recap, or I don't have a new book, let's say, not let's say, it's last page, right? So last page, then simply return from here. Don't continue in execution, don't go here, don't pass me book here, but let's alert me here. Right here, provide all data like this. Okay, so then I go to browsers. When I will refresh, I'll add here, provide all data. Okay, I provide just two data, add, provide all data. So okay, page, and now it's submitted. Perfect. Also, when we will submit our form, I will reset our new book, right? So after it's getting submitted here, so after we are alerting here, I'll write here set new book to the empty object. Like this. Maybe this will create an issue slightly. Let's see. Let's refresh. Let's see console actually for this. And let's provide here some title, recap, last page, add. Okay, and okay, it's working, but our data are not getting restarted here. Okay, add. Oh, actually, we are providing all data and we are still not submitting, so we have a small issue in our code. Let's go back. Okay, and the actual issue will be that we are setting a new state here, the new book, which will be empty object, but we are not propagating this data back to the inputs. The inputs are keeping their internal state, but this state is not coming from React. So what we need to get here is attribute code value, and to the value let's provide here our data here. So from the state, so new book title, and let's pass this value to all of our inputs. And now we should see here error for now, but I will show you how to fix it. Let's write here recap, and here let's provide here last page. Alright, let's save this. Let's go back to our browsers. Now you will see here error. Whenever you see this error, component is changing an uncontrolled input to be controlled. It's happening because you are providing into the values basically undefined values, or they are empty values, because you can see here that use state is initializing our new book to the empty object, and we don't have a title there or this last page and recap. So let's provide here initial data like this. Let's write here comma space. And let's write here title, and title will be, let's initialize this data to the default values, which will be empty string like this. Let's say title and recap, and the last page it will be 0. Okay, and actually we can separate it to the const default initial data, and we can get this from here, initial data. or initial book. All right, and let's get this initial book into our state here, use state, and let's put here initial book. All right, and whenever we are resetting here, let's write here set new book, initial book, whenever we submitting successfully our book. All right, so that should be it. Let's save. Now, when we go back to browser, let's clear this up, let's refresh, no errors here, and I will write here new book. All right, let's add it, and we are seeing here this alert. Okay, and data are getting resetted. When I will submit empty form, provide all data. Okay, provide all data. Okay, add, and we are getting this data here, and they are getting resetted. Perfect. So this is working right. Now we need to figure it out how we'll pass this data from a handle submit, from how we'll get this data and we'll pass them into our app.js, because I would like to get this data from our book create form here, and here I would like to push this new book I am creating into the array of my books here. Simply enough, we can pass here again prop. We can go to our book create form and I can pass here a prop. I will call it on submit, and I will pass here, you can pass anything to prop. You can pass here another components, you can pass here functions, value, string values, number values, booleans, anything you want. And in this case, I would like to pass here function. So I'll create here a function. I'll call here const create book, or add new book, simple arrow function, and I will specify here argument of the book or a new book I am creating. Okay, I'll pass this function into onSubmit. So my onSubmit function prop I'm passing to book create form is basically this function here, add new book. Okay, so I'm passing it as the onSubmit prop into book create form, so I can retrieve it into my book create form. So let's go to our book create form. Let's specify here props, or straight away let's destructurize here onSubmit. We are passing from our app component, and simply instead of the alert, let's execute it. And what is our onSubmit? Our onSubmit is this function here. So we are expecting to receive here a new book, so we can pass this new book from here. So you can get a new book, and let's pass it to a onSubmit. All right, let's save this. Let's go to our app.js. We'll get here this new book here, and simply we can push it to the set books. So I'll write here set books, and actually we won't push it, but we'll provide here a new array of items. So all of my previous item from an array of my state. So I'll write here all of the previous books, destructurize them, and let's add here a new book as the next book, like this. Okay, and you will save this. Let's go back. I'll write here my new book. All right, we'll write something reasonable. Harry Potter recap. Harry's traveling. All right, and page number 22. Let's add this. And very good error, guys. So we are trying to display here our book with the date of the date. So in our book card, we are trying to display book date, and we don't have any book date. If you remember, we are creating a book, but we are creating only title. We are creating a recap, and we are creating a last page, but we are not adding any date. So let's fix it very shortly in our book create form. Before we'll submit this, we'll access here a new book. All right, and we'll write here new book, a date. And this will be our new date. We'll be creating simply new date here. And also let's provide here to initial book. Let's write here date. And our date we'll reset it to a null, basically, like this. Okay. Okay, so now we should have a date we are creating here, but we will be also missing one other information, which is ID. Remember, when we are iterating our items, we are providing their key prop, which we are passing the value from the book ID, and we don't have any book ID here also when we are creating our book. So what we can generate here some ID, and yeah, actually this ID can consist from a date and a book title, or we can straight away just generate here something. Okay, so let's write here new book .id, and it will be consisting of a date. So I will actually write like this, const new date. This will be our new date, and we'll get this date here, and the date will be, this will be our ID, so date to date string plus, and this will be our new book.title. All right, this will be our new ID, and date will be just simply date. All right, and yeah, that should be it. And also we can reset here ID, so ID will be empty string when we'll reset this. Okay guys, let's save this. Okay, let's create a new book. So again, Harry Potter, Harry is traveling, and a page number 22, let's add, and Harry Potter is added here, book. When you will go to console log, everything is working. I can provide here new details, add, and everything it's added here. When I will refresh, of course, this data will change because they are not persisting them, but I would like to keep it for the last lecture of this basic React course. So yeah, we'll keep it here. Also, maybe one more thing before we'll finish. You can maybe notice here when I will add here new data, we not creating a space between the cards. Let's add a spacing between the cards. So let's go back. Let's find here your book card here, and on the card, let's write here a class called MB, margin bottom dash 2. Let's save this. Let's get back here, and you should have here a margin bottom now. So it looks like this. Oof, guys, okay. It was much longer lecture how I expected, but all these basic concepts are hard to explain in very short time, and I try to do my best on the practical examples, as you could see in the application. In next lecture, we'll continue. We still have some topics left here. Actually, I don't have my React application yet, but we need to handle composition, and then I need to show you high order components, and also we need to provide here more features such as persistence and also update of data we have already created. This will be for the last part of this base React course. If you like this video, please press here like. If you don't like it, yeah, you can press the down button, and I would like to ask you if you could subscribe to the course. It helps the channels a lot. And with all of this, I hope to see you in some of my other videos, or maybe in some of my courses. So guys, cheers, have a nice day, and I hope to see you in the next lecture.